Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to share with you my new favorite virtual vision board. You know that I love all things affirmations, visualization, and meditation, and we talk about these topics often on the podcast. So when I came across the Perfectly Happy Vision Board app, I was really excited to try it out. What I love most about it is that it's a convenient and powerful way to visualize your dream life, become clearer in what you want to achieve, and it helps you stay focused and motivated. I also love that you can set multiple daily reminders to take a mindfulness break and help you visualize your dreams, which, as you know, helps you build a resilient mindset. What you do is you download the app and you go through the steps to create your own vision board, where you can add in photos and music and affirmations to each area of your life that you're trying to manifest in. The best part is that all of the things that you need are already in the app. The combination of sound and photo and affirmations makes your vision board more vivid and ultimately easier to manifest. What I also love is that you can write unlimited daily gratitude journal entries to help you reflect on your day and really build that gratitude muscle. I can honestly say that all of the things that I put on my own vision board have happened, and it was so wild to see it all come to life. It only takes 3 minutes per day, and I really think that we all have 3 minutes. Start your free trial of the Perfectly Happy app by clicking on the link in the show notes. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Christina, welcome to the podcast. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's going to be such a great conversation. This conversation is, in my opinion, very important, especially the era that we're living in right now, always connected. So many different things in so many areas, and I feel like we don't ever really give ourselves the chance to rest. So I would love to hear a little bit how you got into this work that you're doing now.
Well, it emerged out of my own discomfort and challenge with the ways in which the internet felt like it was encroaching on my life. And I think maybe a lot of your listeners might resonate with this feeling. It was sort of the slow, uptake of email and then social media. And then I don't know if your listeners will remember, but even within the platforms themselves, within social media, the real-time updates and all of the multiples of ways in which we engage. It used to be just sort of one feed, right? And now we've got 18 different feeds, and then we're adding reels. And so the different layers, right, that are drawing and calling for our attention all the time. And so for me, it was my own challenge with the ways that I was engaging or really disengaging with loved ones online, the ways it was changing me creatively. I felt like my output was really waning creatively a number of years ago. And so I had this curiosity about what would happen if I took a chunk of time off of the internet. I had a curiosity about what would happen. So I actually did a fast. I did a 31-day break from the internet.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It was a really big deal. And I was working as a freelance writer at the time. I still had stories to deliver while I was offline. I did all kinds of wild, crazy hacks to get those sent in time, which involved USB sticks and envelopes in the mail, which got lost. Like, I really committed. But what I discovered during that chunk of time away was an absolute quietness of mind that I had been hungering for. I found so much margin that I never knew I had. Like, all those little 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute check-ins I did on my phone actually add up to a huge amount of time that I could channel into creative pursuits, into things that really brought me joy and happiness. So that's where it all began for me.
Oh, I love that so much. I think that's so important. And I honestly couldn't agree with you more when you say those 15, 20-minute, stints. Like, sometimes I'll open up my phone, and in my business, I manage a lot of social media accounts for different clients. Right. And so I'll open something up, I'll go to post something, and then 30 minutes later, I'm like, what? I don't even have the time for this. Like, I don't have the time to sit here and look for 30 minutes. And then it's like, you wonder why the days get so crazy. It's because, are you actually being intentional with the time that you're spending online? So with that in mind, I would love to know, how did you start to detach yourself after you did this social media and internet and technology break? How did you start to put boundaries back around your time online, especially now as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. Great question. So, as you can imagine, sort of like having a full fast, I didn't want to gorge myself. I actually was quite reluctant to come back online. And so it was very intentional. And so the first thing I did was actually unsubscribed from a huge amount of email.
Mm.
And this is something I continue to advocate for. I actually run my own program, the JOMO Method, and we do a monthly digital house cleaning party where we go in and we unsubscribe from newsletters and we go through our social media follow lists and ask some really clear, simple questions about, do I want to bring this forward with me? Or is now the time to unfollow this person? And it's not a vindictive, move against a person or an organization or a brand. It's really about, what do I want to carry forward with me? And so I've carried that intentionality forward, but it's intentionality, but it's also just practical, like accountability in terms of like keeping that going. Because it's easy to be like, yeah, I only want to follow accounts that bring me joy. Or I only want to, engage with, email that's right, in my sweet spot in terms of like what my objectives are with my business. But very practically, you have to spend the time to clear that stuff away on the regular, because otherwise it just slowly creeps up. It's so easy to follow an account, but take some intentionality and time to go in there and unfollow. So those are some of the steps I've continued.
I love that. That's really, really great. And, I can honestly say that anytime I've done like a mass unsubscribe, same as you, like, it just feels like you can breathe again. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I was listening to this thing, and they were saying like all of the different things that we have in our lives, like even things like cluttered drawers, like with old letters or bills and all the stuff that's been paid. It's like, it just sits there. Right. And it's all this old, like stagnant energy that just doesn't move. And so it's totally the same thing, I would imagine, on the online and digital space. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, we just come right back to our friend Marie Kondo, right? In terms of, right, sparking joy in your physical space. But I mean, increasingly, right, in our digital space, and most of us spend more waking hours in our digital spaces than we do away from our devices. And so how important it is to clear away all of that. And even as for those of your listeners that are creatives, I consider myself a creative professional, and that's who I speak to and teach to, right? We're not being hired to be good organizers of information. We're being hired to be creative, right? Exactly. And so when we've got all of this clutter, it's difficult to get to those really good ideas. So we need to clear them away.
Absolutely agree with you. Now, in terms of when we talk about stress and like being attached to our phones, attached to our devices, and being constantly stressed, I feel like our nervous system is constantly on like the edge of like, do I have to answer this email? Do I respond to this client? Do I do, you know what I mean? How does being attached to our device cause that stress? And what would you say are maybe like one or two tips of ways that people can start to create that boundary without maybe being offensive? Or, if it is with a client who might be a little bit more demanding, or someone who messages you at all hours of the day, you know what I mean? Like those kind of things.
If we are always available, then we're almost always in a state of stress, right? Because you're not in control of the channel, someone else is. And so I'm a big advocate for setting boundaries. First and foremostly with yourself, like what are your sweet spots in terms of time and attention and energy, and protecting those times. And so if you really need the time between 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. to just create, then you need to tell your clients, I'm available from 9:30 to whatever the time is. And here is the channel you can reach me at. I think a lot of the stress also comes from number one, which I already said, which is being always available. But number two is the multitude of ways that people can get to us, and the fear we have that we're going to miss something. And so really deciding for yourself, this is I would suggest only one or two channels. Like these are the one or two ways you can reach me. And it's like only text and DM, or it's only email, and whatever your other channel is, Slack or some other, right? Like teamwork, for example. But really defining that clearly for yourself and for those you work with.
That's really, really great and super valuable and super helpful and things that you can actually implement right away, which is what I like about this whole concept and everything that you talk about. It's not things that are so far out or such a far stretch to actually integrate into your reality. It's really about bringing more of that mindfulness back into your practice, and like practice could be your life, right? So
That's right.
I love that. And then how would you say that digital media as a whole, and we could get specific if you want to, impacts our overall happiness?
So my first book is called The Joy of Missing Out, and my second book subtitle is How to Live Joyfully in the Digital Age. And so for
Mm,
me, I love that your whole theme for your podcast and your work is happiness. For me, it is joy.
mm,
Those are, arguably interchangeable. And so for me, it really is about centering our lives on what brings us alive, what brings us joy. And I can tell you every tip and trick in the book about digital well-being and digital habits and all of these things. But ultimately, you only catch bees with honey. Okay. I
yes.
heard this before. And if you really, really want to binge watch a show, like so bad, you're not going to not binge watch because someone told you binge watching is bad. You're going to not binge watch because you've got something better to do. You're going to
True.
spend time with loved ones. You're going out for a drink. You're going out for a walk with your partner. You've got an amazing, juicy book on your bedstand that you cannot wait to read. Joy is the path. Happiness is the path away from dull, deadening practices and ways of being online. The reason why we feel so bad scrolling endlessly on social media is because we actually know we were made for more.
Hmm.
We know we are made for deeper friendship, for more creativity, for more aliveness, more connection to the real world. We know that there's more. And so for me, the whole conversation about the joy of missing out is like all of the joys that are just there waiting for us. And so very
Mm-hmm.
practically, I think the way that we live well in the digital age is putting joy in our own way. So if you want to paint more, don't like shove the paints in a drawer and make them really hard to get to. You might love your perfect aesthetic in your house, but I'm telling you, if you want to paint, you got to put paint in your way. You got to put
Yeah.
your paint out. So when you have that moment of like, I want to paint, it's just like right there waiting for you to do it. So that's a very practical way I think that we can live better with technology.
I love that. And it's so funny that you use paint as an example because that's something that I've wanted to do for so long. And I'm the type of person where I get like a passion or a hobby and I always turn it into a business or a job. Okay. Which is it's a great thing. And I love that, but I also have zero hobbies. And so I want to paint, but I have no idea where even to start. And it's kind of like I'm so used to putting rules around so many different things that
Hmm.
I have to like almost put like rules around painting, which is so like a silly thing because it should be something that's just so fluid and so creative and just so fun and joyful, right?
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that's such a modern thing. I'm not, well, modern, but also like specific. So I was visiting a couple of years ago. Our family went on a road trip to see friends of ours that we knew in a big city, but they moved back to a teeny tiny town in North Dakota. And I was visiting with my close friend, Sarah, had all of these creative projects on the go. And like none of them were monetized. Like none of them. She like whatever, like tea cozies and this and that, and beautiful little bookmark made out of fabric with magnets that she just like make for fun and mailed to friends. And I was like, this, like the people that I know living in Toronto or wherever you're located in a big city, it is true. We are all trying to monetize the heck out
Everything.
of everything. And what is that? Like, what is that all about? I think part of it is the practical reality of the cost of living and looking
Yeah.
like really close at how much that is driving your
Mm.
well-being, like your actual enjoyment of life. Like if the cost is so high that you literally can't have a waking moment that's not monetized, like that's really something serious to consider.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it really gave me pause and challenged me to hold things back. And I hope that you and your listeners take that away from today, is to hold
Yeah.
these precious things back that are just for you, are just for the joy of it. Because we can't have a purpose. We talk all the time about purpose, especially those of us who are like teaching people about joy and happiness. Like purpose is important, but we can't have like, we can't be driven and purpose, led in every single part of our lives. Like we
Yeah.
need to just do things for the sake of it. And like, if you love a painting and you know someone who would love that painting, don't sell them that painting, give them that painting.
I love that. Oh, I love that. And as we're talking, all I can think about is you were mentioning my wall earlier, and I have this big wall and there's nothing on it. For those who are listening to this and can't see, you can also watch this on YouTube and you can see the wall that I'm referring to. But I would love to create like just a big giant piece of art and have it hanging there.
Mm,
Like, I feel like that would just be so nice. I think you've inspired me to do that. That might have to be like my creative project that I'm working on. And I will update you with a photo.
please do.
Yes, I will, because I need that accountability.
And
Oh,
I've painted my own things and they're very precious. They're very
yeah,
precious, There's a beautiful book called Beautiful Oops. It's a kid's book, but I highly recommend looking it up if you ever refer to things in your show notes.
I do. Yeah.
Because it's all about making and how oops, a coffee, some coffee spilled or the paper ripped or this didn't turn out the way I wanted. And I can't tell you how many times I refer to it for my kids, but I do it for myself too. Like, oops, but how am I going to incorporate that into the next thing? And I think that's true for us as, creative professionals, as entrepreneurs as well, right? It's like progress over perfection. We have to move it forward. So
Mhm.
your painting will probably not turn out the way that you think it will, but it will still be beautiful.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm very excited. I have an idea of how I would want it to look, but of course, it's not. You're right. It's not going to turn out that way. Okay, I'm curious. I want to talk about your books. So you have two
Yes.
books, one
Hmm.
book that is just launched or just launching?
It is launching right now. It's officially
Okay.
launching this coming Tuesday. Yes.
So
It
exciting.
is.
So by the time everyone's listening to this will be out in December. And so your book will have been launched already. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
link is in the show notes, you guys. So be sure to just tune in and grab that link there so you can get the book. So anyways, do continue.
Yes. So the new book is called Good Burdens: How to Live Joyfully in the Digital Age. And
Mm,
the idea with Good Burdens, which is probably a bit of a surprising title, considering my first book, which is The Joy of Missing Out. But technology's big promises, it has three big promises. Big technology, okay, all the technology we consume on a regular basis, our home pods and Instagram and all the things. The big promise is we're going to make things more convenient, you can control more, right? We're going to make it faster, easier, all of the things. But the
yeah.
reality is the things that bring us most joy actually are not convenient. They're not usually fast or easy, right? And they require a lot of us to experience them. And so I made this amazing discovery actually interviewing the mother of mindfulness, Dr. Helen Langer, who wrote the book literally Mindfulness. Was the first tenured professor of psychology, a woman at Harvard University.
Wow.
And the things that bring us most joy require us to notice them and to nurture them. It requires attention and effort. And so that is the idea of good burdens, is there's these certain things, these certain activities that we engage in that once we're across a certain threshold of effort, the burden of it disappears. So creating like a good piece of artwork, right? That's a burdensome thing that requires planning and time and attention and effort. But once you're across the threshold and you're beholding that piece and showing it to others, like that is all joy, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is a good burden. That is worth the effort. And so the big promise of like, we're just going to ship it faster and it's going to be easier and like you're not going to have to do anything, like that actually doesn't bring us alive. That actually doesn't bring us joy. And that's why we can consume 100 pieces of inspirational content on Instagram and then like not implement any of it. It's because we haven't actually put in the effort to take that somewhere else. And so that's the
Mm.
idea of good burdens. I really think that when we think about, it's the end of my day and I've been on Zoom for 7 or 12 hours, whatever the case may be. What should I now do with my time? Well, what I'm advocating for is doing something that's a good burden, like
Mm.
preparing a meal, like being attentive to that and putting the work into it, but like also engaging in the joy of that, or getting out and going for a walk by yourself or with your friend in nature. That's a good burden, to like put the time and attention into it. If we just shift from zooming all day and then just start scrolling Instagram and then start watching Netflix and then flop into bed, that is not the good life. That is just not the good life. We're meant for more. So thanks for asking. And that's what the new book is about. And then the joy of missing out is, it is a lot about disconnecting from the internet and all the joys that are away from our devices. It's based in a lot of research from the world's best thinkers on how to unplug from technology and the benefits of that. So they kind of work hand in hand.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. And I love that both topics are different, but play into each other. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm a big fan of your work. And I think it's very important because you nailed it on the head. Some days, I'll just take myself as an example. I love to call my own self out on my show. It's fine. But on some days, I'll work all day. I'll work from like 9 until 6, whatever. I don't even want to make dinner. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Like, let's just pull something out that's easy. Obviously, like that doesn't make you feel great either. And then my dog, like I have a puppy, he's 8 months old. He just wants to play. And I'm like, Netflix, like my brain is so tired that I can't fathom. But then when I do take those moments and instead I'm like, you know what? Let's play instead. Let's do something fun. It's actually so much more energizing than me sitting and falling asleep on the couch at like 9 or 10 p.m. And you're 100%. Right. It is not a way to live. It's not. You're not living life. Like there's nothing about that is for me, like a huge reason of being an entrepreneur was so I could have more time and freedom to do what I love. Well, what is it that I love? Sitting on the couch watching Netflix? Not really. Like, sometimes okay, but sure. I really agree with you a lot.
And I love that you framed it as energizing. And I think that's a really, really good way, a really simple way for you and all of us to think about it is what is energizing and what is de-energizing, and leaning into the things that are energizing. And almost universally, you'll find that the energizing things will require some front end effort, just a little bit of just literally getting up off the couch and walking out the door. But as soon as you're engaged in that thing, it gives you the returns or just, a multitude. Like it's just
so true.
It's worth the effort.
I agree with you. And ultimately at the end of the day, like work will always be there. It'll never shut itself off. There's always more to do. If I think back now, like I couldn't even tell you what those specific tasks were that I thought were so important to do on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. Couldn't tell you. I have no idea. You know what I mean? I could not tell you, but I can tell you what I did instead and how much more fun that was, So
absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, Christina, I want to ask you this one question. It's a question that I ask all my guests when they come on the show. And it's how can someone create a little more happiness in their day, every day, starting today?
Starting today, you can start by asking yourself 2 questions at the end of your day. What today was most life-giving and what today was most life-taking?
Ooh, those are good.
Yes.
Really good.
And what you'll find over time, if you just keep adding to those 2 columns, is you'll start living into happiness, into things that bring you joy.
I love
things that are life-giving. Yeah.
Amazing. That's beautiful. No one's ever said that before. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful tip and reminder. Christina, where can everyone find you so they can learn more about you and get your books?
Yes, thank you so much. Christina Crook, CROOK.com. And you can find me on social, mostly at the Christina Crook. And I would be so, so happy to see you and engage with you and meet you. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christina, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. Please let Christina and I know that you're listening. Tag us on social media. Let us know what you loved. Or maybe if you're not on social media because you're doing a detox, let Christina know after your detox is done. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.